welcome to the Animal Training Academy Making Ripples podcast show, the show where we share the stories of the ripple-making extraordinaires with behavior nerd superpowers who make up the Animal Training Academy membership. I'm your host and one of the happiness engineers at Animal Training Academy, Shelley Wood from Drop Your Jaws Dog Training in Cape Girardeau, Missouri in the United States. We're absolutely thrilled and grateful to have you here with us today. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single episode. This show is brought to you on behalf of the Animal Training Academy membership. So if you like the conversations in these episodes, then we want to invite you to continue them with like-minded people in the ATA membership, which you can find out more about at www.atamember.com. Within the membership, you can get access to twice monthly live web classes, the back catalog of previous web class replays, plus a huge library of videos and projects to help you problem solve your training challenges. And we're a sociable bunch with an exclusive private Facebook group and forums area. It's like a Netflix social media platform for animal behavior geeks. Today we are excited to welcome Zuzia Kubica. Zuzia Kubica, CDBC, has been working rehabilitating dogs since 2002 in Quebec, Canada, for her company CoeurCanin. I cannot say that right. Zuzia will tell us in a minute how that is said properly. Following a childhood traveling befriending stray dogs, feral cats, raccoons, horses, mice, and more. Her formation, CoeurCanin, have been graduating dog behavior consultants in French since 2014. Zuzia gives seminars for the public about behavior problems, clicker training, and canine musical freestyle. She offers personalized training for rescues, veterinary teams, dog centers, and groomers. She has a soft spot for past street, feral, or free-roaming dogs, as well as the ones who suffer from reactivity. She suspects being the only human who truly enjoys the teenage stage of dogs. Zuzia feels privileged to clicker train many different species for wildlife sanctuaries, farm animal rescues, and is always ready for an opportunity of a clicker conversation with any animal who opts in. Her family, Mishtamek, a young Shiba Inu, and her animal lover husband, favorite free time is spent on nature road trips, canoe camping, and wildlife watching. Welcome, Zuzia. Please forgive me for my horrible pronunciations of things in your bio, but welcome. I'm so excited to have you here with us today.
Hello, you did very good. I'm sorry, there's like 3 languages in those names.
I was going to ask, how many different languages are in the bio there? So you think it's about 3?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good. What do we have? We have French and English,
Polish.
Of course, and Polish.
Yeah, and Polish, that's my name. And then my dog's name is in Innu language. So you had that too.
Okay, so 4. Is that 4 then, I think?
Yeah, well then, yeah, 4.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Zuzia. I'm really excited to talk to you more and learn more about you and the wonderful work that you're doing in the world. So could you start us off by telling us just a little bit about your story, how you started working with animals and what you do today with your work with animals?
Sure. So it all started pretty much in my childhood. I was born in Poland. By that time, it was communist time. It wasn't at all like the last years if you go. So there was lots of street dogs, which I loved. That was like my point in life. If the dog was barking somewhere, I would, go there slowly, maybe with little pieces of bread and try to make friends eventually over weeks with him. I had no idea I could make a living out of that. I was like 4 by then. But animals and nature were always my favorite thing. And then we traveled a lot because my mom tried to flee the communist country. So we lived in England for a year where there was also some dogs, stray and not stray, and street cats. And then we went back to Poland for street dogs, where actually a street dog adopted us at some point, which was great. And then we went to Greece. Over there was actually a dog that taught me how to swim, and all the feral cats over there. we came back to Poland, and then finally we moved to Canada and we stayed there. And that's where I am today. And here with my mom, who's also a nature lover, and my stepdad, who's also an animal lover, we were like, wow, animals, wildlife everywhere. So just the raccoons were walking, through our apartment, and the squirrels I could train all day. It was, really nice for us. So I would say that, of course, I didn't know I could train dogs. I knew you could be a veterinarian, but I was not going there. Too much blood, no, that was not my thing. So I didn't really know what I'll do with my life. I mean, I was good in school. I have a scientific family, so I could do many things, but I didn't know what to do. But of course, I was always, surrounded with animals. We didn't have a dog because we traveled too much. We had a cat, but I was taking care, pet sitting, walking dogs all around in high school and all that, helping at a grooming place. So yeah, I was sure I really liked it. And then eventually I had to choose something. I thought science, but then you have to do experiments on mice, which I had pet mice that I trained, no way. So I didn't go to science just because of that. I knew you could be like a dolphin trainer, or wow, that'd be great, but there were none in Quebec. And I was fed up of changing countries. So I was like, no, I'm staying in Montreal. Too bad. I'm not doing that with dolphins here. So I went actually university, fine arts. I did other stuff, but I was always having those little jobs on the side that had to do with animals. And eventually I was working at one of the first pet stores in Quebec that did not sell animals, just the accessories. So I liked working there. And then I realized that I actually like to talk to the humans as well, because I always I had friends, but during my childhood, I had more animal friends than human friends because we were always new somewhere. And at first I didn't know the language. And by the time I learned it, then we moved again. So it was much easier to befriend the squirrels and the dogs and the cats and all that. So in that store, I was like, oh, actually, I like talking to the humans that love their animals. And I also tried to do lots of research on many things because they always had all those questions. My dog, my cat does this, my parrot that, and I don't know, but I tried to find answers for them. And I had it was the beginning of the internet, late 90s. So I was on many groups and trying to learn things, having no idea I'll work in that. And one day, this man comes in and asks us if he can leave his business cards. And then I look and it's it says trainer dog, but it didn't really say trainer. I knew you could do training, sit, stay, very military, zero interest to that. That's not how I see dogs. But it was specialist in behavior, something like that. It's so I start talking with him. And he was actually the first one in Quebec who started years ago visits at home, to help people with their dogs. And he said, well, actually, I'm starting, my next session for those who wants to become behavior specialist or whatever he was saying. I'm like, okay, I'm in next Wednesday. Great. I'm going. And that's it. So class one, I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do in life. I also noticed probably in the first hour that I will absolutely not work like this man. He was not very violent. He talked against the very violent methods that, and some of the centers still exist 25 years later. But anyways, where they, do a helicopter with your dog and hit him against the wall that really bad stuff. So for him, just doing a little joke correction was much gentler, and I agree. But for me, that's not how I treat my dog friend. So I knew I was I won't go this way. So I had so many questions for him that he couldn't answer, but still he gave me the opportunity to just know this kind of profession exists. So I still finished his school, just not doing some of the exercise that he wanted me to do. And I don't know really how I did the exercises with the dogs, but not his way. And meanwhile, my parents left from Montreal when I was 17 because my mom got a really good job in Washington, D.C. And I was like, no, I'm staying in Montreal. I'm fed up of moving. but she kind of inherited a dog over there from somebody that was renting a room and didn't want the dog anymore. Like she wanted a new sofa. So she saw my mom was kind of, walking the dog as she was there, and was like, what, do you want the dog? Because I don't want him anymore. The dog was only 10, was healthy. So of course she took him. My family, I have been lucky in that. Like nobody trains animals, nowhere in my family, but my mom's side is very respect of nature, forest, animals in general. She liked cats all her life, not so much dogs. But this dog, needed her, so she took him. But he died very fast got hit by a car, like a horrible accident, maybe a year later, and they were really sad. And my little brother, who was only 13, was like, I want a dog. So they actually adopted a dog from a shelter over there. And after a month or two of tickets, because he was charging people and stuff, they were like, well, you kind of study with dog behavior, take him. so I was like, sure, I'll take Zorro. So Zorro was learned later, was an American dingo. He did at least 5 houses before us. He definitely knew how to live by himself. When we went to like wildlife camping, he could feed himself and be very autonomous. And well, he had all the troubles. Like, so he had reactivity to other dogs, reactivity to people on the street. Happily, like, not that I know that he really bit very hard, but he could bite, but not more than a tiny, scratch or something like that, but still. And he would also panic when left alone, which I understand after being abandoned so many times, but he would eat his leg raw instead of, hitting the walls or something. Yeah, that was hard because I asked that's how I started to meet other trainers. Like my teacher, my ex-teacher, the one I did the class with, was like, oh, I don't think it's too much. Like he's too much of a case. There's nothing to do. So anywhere I ask, and I was very worried, like, what are you going to do to my dog? Just tell me first. Like, no. And most of the places then were like very violent. I learned after that there was like one person that's doing violent thing around Montreal, but it was some time ago. So yeah, so I was basically told everywhere there's nothing to do, or maybe an electric collar. Or of course, like one guy was said, but look, if I put a prong collar on him, he works perfectly and he doesn't charge the other dog. Like, I know, he already had that in his past. So he was just intelligent, was like, okay, I'm not reacting, fine. But he was so, shut down. I was like, no, that's not what he needs. So I didn't know what it was, but then I went into my Polish blood, which can be very perseverant, if we want to say it in a positive way. I was like, I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out. So I would start traveling first. Well, in French, it's always, in any subject, English, you have more knowledge in any domain. So I knew that, well, okay, I've seen what's in French. There's not so much. I'll have to go in the English side. So I went to the Ontario province and then to the States. And so I would regularly just sleep in the car with Zorro, which is fine. He was a bit reactive, so I felt safe to travel to those places because I wasn't very rich, to learn things. And I started to pick out, little things of like, okay, there are things that are possible. So I saw like a T-touch person working who told me, no, I think there's something to do with your dog. I still couldn't approach him to the group. He had to be in the field very far away, but at least nobody were trying to choke him. And they just said, like, I think there's something to be done. They didn't tell me what, but there was a hope. I listened to some Suzanne Cloutier workshops. That has been like 23 years ago. And I was like, yeah, that speaks to me. I think I can make out something from that logic. So basically Zorro really taught me my protocols that I still use with reactive dogs today, and other ones. And after that, well, I tweaked some of them, but I realized lately for reactivity, like this is still what I'm doing. It's really thanks to Zorro. So I started my company very fast because after finishing that class that I didn't agree with the teacher, but I still had whatever, good grades with him. Some old student of him had a company and was, asking him for new trainers. So they hired me, but like very fast, I learned that, well, first of all, not all her trainers were very nice to dogs. So I felt bad, like, well, recommending the company I work, and I don't know, it depends who you get as a trainer, if it's a good idea or not. And I also saw like I'm much more motivated than the boss, which is a problem. So I was like, well, you know what, I'll just start my own. So I started within 2 months. I was full, just from word to mouth. The need for efficient training was very much there. So I still do that. I think I started my company in 2002, 3, something like that. I still do that today, but I also give lots of webinars to the public or to places like rescues and vet clinics. Sometimes that's more rare, but I really love when they do that. And of course, dog centers and groomers and anything like that. I have my formation CoeurCanin is the training school for future trainers that I have in French. So how it started is because as I was giving seminars and all that, maybe in 2006, I was starting to be approached by lots of trainers who were already doing training, but they didn't have a good protocol for this problem or that problem. They wanted some like extra training on top of whatever training they already had. And eventually I had people that were just starting at zero and like, I want to be a dog trainer, train me. Okay. So I trained a few in private and was like, okay, there's too much of that. I'll just start a school for trainers. It's very small groups because I need to know everyone. I'm very, very hard on myself in work. So I don't have employees. I would it would be too hard and humane. But with my students, I really want to know every one of my students very well and coach them and make sure they really understand everything before they're done. I've been doing that since 2014. And my point will really with the formation CoeurCanin is to train people that, of course, will be up to date and, nice to animals and nice to people, but also efficient, because as the nice, positive reinforcement methods got more popular in the last, 10, 12 years here, there were lots of trainers using, clickers and food and all that, but unfortunately, not that many that were very efficient. So that started to backfire in the sense that I will meet many clients that were like, oh yeah, I tried, positive reinforcement, 2 trainers and didn't work. So sometimes they went back to the, trainers using the old methods because it actually worked better. So I was like, no, you have to use positive reinforcement, but you have to be efficient. So I started thinking, what are the best protocols I can teach them? And also, people are not, most of people I have here being clients or the students are not super rich. So I have to teach them in a year part-time. They cannot do like a 3-year program. They won't have the resources for that. It's a demanding program, but they are actually ready. So many of them are able to continue on their own, or some of them work with assistant dogs, and some of them do training and behavior and all that. So I'm very happy I can pass that on. All the protocols and things I invented a lot thanks to Zorro, a lot of them, and then tried on many nice clients. So today it's really a mix of teaching those students, and I still want to do the just regular, one-on-one clients or sometimes a group class. I also love teaching freestyle, not the frisbee kind, the musical kind. I discovered that in 2006. Actually, one of my clients were like, where can I do freestyle? I'm like, I don't know, in Ontario? Okay, you started. Okay, fine. I'm going to train myself and start it. So with Zorro was really nice that I'm really happy this woman client made me do it, because I had so much fun with Zorro, and I've seen so many other dogs that I was seeing in private, for reactivity and other problems, anxious, that just they changed so much through the freestyle. So for those who don't know freestyle, it's teaching different like fantasy moves. So there's no moves that are that you have to do. So if your dog is maybe injured or old or young or doesn't like, roll over, that's fine. You can do something else. There's so many moves you can invent. And then you do a choreography on the chosen music. So it's really, what I really love about Canin freestyle is, well, first of all, it's really like the relationship between the dog and the person can be really put in forward, the personality of the dog. It really doesn't look like, hey, you dog, do something. The dog actually, the way I teach it, often I encourage my clients to let their dogs start to initiate some moves. So sometimes a dog will invent something, and usually it's really good compared to what we try invent humans. So it's so nice. And I've seen, so many anxious and nervous dogs just start to be less nervous by learning, to dance basically with their humans. And we would do lots of, before COVID, COVID kind of changed that, but we would do lots of presentations, just voluntary presentation, be it at, now I don't know the English world. So yeah, the places where the older people will live, whatever you call those centers for older people. I don't know the English name.
Like maybe a retirement home or a nursing
Things
home,
like that, yes.
something like that.
Yeah, both. So sometimes would be autonomous people that are just a bit bored, and sometimes we would even, we had one place we would go many times. It's all people with memory problems, and they used our visits to like do whatever therapy that really worked. And also in just, let's say SPCA has a day for, some kind of day to get funding, and we come there to do little demos of freestyle. We did that on TV a bit at first when it started, and a bit everywhere. And my point of those public demo freestyle was always to catch people by the, wow, look, a dog is dancing, cute. And then I always requested with the organizer, and then I just want a little moment where I can actually speak about how we train dogs, because now they were like all attracted to public of something nice, and they were like, wow, this dog can do this and can do that. And then I show people how you actually do it in a confrontational way. So Zorro was such a huge ambassador. I was very lucky. I had him adult. He was maybe 2-3 years old, I don't know, and I had him for 12 years. So I mean, the last 8 years he was rehabilitated. Like, people would tell me, oh, what a perfect dog, I want one like that. Yeah, no, you don't. now, yes. But he could do, those public events and inspired lots of people. So I really owe him a lot, to him, but also to all those street dogs and my family, because I realized when I started to be in the training, not grooming and pet sitting, that I noticed many people that started in the years I started today are crossover. They started in the more violent ways, and then they moved on. And I just didn't do it. I was kind of lucky. I never had to be like, no, I was never a crossover, because I couldn't. The street dogs were too equal to me. And the example by my family, for example, my stepdad, who's with my mom since I'm 5 years old. He comes from a family. His parents were in a tiny apartment in Warsaw, always rescuing 4 or 5 dogs over there. Lots of respect for animals, lots of love. Nobody ever tried to train them at my house. That's why we had cats, And I remember I was probably 5, 6, and I'm near this big boulevard, this big street in Warsaw with my stepdad. We're going somewhere, and he's like, look at this dog. He points me to a street dog. Look how smart he is to cross the street. He looks one way and then one way and just crosses without running. You should do the same. So, when I was raised like that, how can I, after that, think I'm better than the dog and I should choke him or something? So I'm really happy about this childhood that, wasn't really easy, moving all the time and all the difficult, human side of that for my family. But the contact it gave me, I think, really shaped how my training went. So sometimes I find it might be easier for me than some of my colleagues that are crossover to actually work with clients that right now use violent things with their dogs, because I don't think I have like this guilt in me, which some of my colleagues have to work on before they they don't, start yelling at their clients to stop choking their dog, because I understand it's it's hard. So yeah, I was very lucky because of that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I'm just struck by how much experience you have, just such a diverse array of really interesting experience from your life growing up with street dogs and wildlife and all of that kind of observation, relationship building, to your experience with Zorro. And I was going to ask, that was the one kind of big question I had for you, was Zorro responsible for your interest and work in reactivity now? But you've already answered that he was a big part.
I would probably get there anyways, but for sure he's the one that I had every day, and I had no hope, no help by then. Like today, I could get some good stuff working, but yeah, he helped me invent the protocols I still use. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So we're grateful to you, and we're grateful to Zorro and his legacy.
Yes, be grateful for Zorro, for sure.
Yeah. And I love your focus on people too. I wrote down a couple times when you were talking that, you enjoy talking to humans. It's important for you in your work with humans to be kind to people and use positive reinforcement with them as well as with the dogs you're working with. And I think that's so great to remember that it's not just the dogs and the other non-human animals that we're working with, but it's those humans that we need to have a good connection with as well.
Yeah, for sure. This is something I saw fast, like, wow, wait a second, you're a trainer, but how do you explain that to the client? Like, how do you approach? So I think I was the first school in Quebec that for trainers that started to really have a chapter on that. Because yeah, I mean, you have to treat your humans right. And I find I always tell my students, like, we are the trainers, we are so lucky, like we get the best of the humans, because I think in the dog human relationship you get the best and the worst of humans. Like in parent and child relationships, you can always get the best and the worst you can observe. So people that work with shelters, or they often see a big part of the worst in humans. Veterinarians can see lots of it too. As a trainer, we see some, but at least they called us. I mean, it's already like we have the cream of the cream. Like, so I tell my students, you're not allowed to hate humans. Like, we're too privileged as trainers. We already have a person that actually asks about doing something with their dog, which is so much better than all the other people that do not call us ever.
What a fantastic perspective. I don't think I ever really thought about it like that, but you're right. As far as people, professionals who work with dogs, trainers and behavior consultants, we have the people who are motivated and willing to reach out to try to, even if they wouldn't necessarily, some of them might, and some of them might not articulate it in this way, but people who are reaching out to try to better their relationship with their animals. So yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, and I think even like the less nice clients who don't tell us that they want a nice relationship with their dog, they tell us, make him listen or something like that. Well, at least, I mean, if the person has a dog, he's looking for a relationship with his dog somewhere. Now the relationship might be we'll see, but at least I have a opening in a door. I mean, there is a need of that human to something. If they want to change the behavior of the dog, I can, the way I work with difficult clients, difficult in a way they like to have, power or something, and where they come from culturally or whatever. Just the last trainer they saw gave them really different information from me, but since they want to change something, I have a motivation of a human. So then as my job, I want to make a link between, the needs of the human with the needs of the dog. And then somehow we can get somewhere. Definitely.
And then I also just wanted to touch a little bit on the canine freestyle that you were talking about. I have watched people, that train freestyle before and always think it's really beautiful and really cool, but have never really thought about it much myself. But you have, if anything has ever inspired me to look into it, it's been listening to you talk about it here.
Oh.
I love the way that you describe it that suggests there's so much flexibility in it, whereas in another dog,
which really helps people like me. I remember trying agility and I could not remember which, obstacle goes after which obstacle. The number of times Zorro would just stop and look at me like, could you decide yourself? Because I have that problem. It's like right and left, don't ask me. And with freestyle, nobody knows what's going to be a routine. Well, your dog knows if you practice. So if you forget, just follow your dog. So I find it so different. It's much easier for my brain. Personally, I'm cheating completely. I cannot do the other sports. My dog will be like so disappointed with me, but it doesn't show in the freestyle. And I find scent work will do that also, where at some point we follow the dog. So yeah, those are.
Yeah.
It's pretty much my favorite sport activity organized with dogs. It's that.
I do love scent work for that same reason, following the dog. And I know I have just never anything serious at all, but I have just played around with some things like obedience and such with my dog, Miha, before. And, there's a way that each behavior is supposed to look, but inevitably your dog will throw something at you that looks so much cooler than the way the behavior is supposed to look. Why wouldn't you capture that and
we put him in a square of this is how it should be. Like I finished fine arts. Come on, I like creativity for sure. And my mom had lots of faults, but she did not kill my creativity. In Poland, I was allowed to draw on the walls as much as I want in my room, things like that. So it's precious for me in our animals who have, today we talk about a lot about choices. So if the dog cannot choose which game we're playing or how to do the spin trick or something, I mean, it's a nice, the freestyle, I find at first we guide him and we show him things, but from the beginning, we can do it in a very obedience way on music, but we can do it in a way of, what do you think about that? And it shows. And I use it a lot therapeutically for, so I had lots of, for example, dogs with, reactive problems and things like that, it's hard for the people. And now they can do something light and their dog is beautiful. And eventually some of those reactive dogs were able to do like public presentations, which was further than they hoped. But I'd give them something lighter to do, and the dogs really can develop. I've seen, in one session, just dogs that were one session of 6 weeks, novice class of freestyle. And for example, I remember this big dog, teenage, mix, Great Dane something, who was fine, but he was a bit anxious. At home, for example, he would be afraid to pass in some doors next to some objects. After three classes, she told me that's it. He doesn't have any problem with that. I think the conscious of his body through learning how to spin and give paw and all that made him more at ease in his own body, so more confident. And I think we see the same things with humans. Kids that would start some sport or dancing, how it can give them some confidence. I'm sure for dogs as well. So even if my clients don't, finish really a choreography or something, just playing with freestyle can be really nice for both of them.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for sharing all of that and for providing that inspiration for some of us to dive into canine freestyle a little bit more. Could you tell us now about a recent training-related challenge or a training-related challenge that you've experienced, and maybe a little bit about how you worked through it and some of the things that you learned from it?
Recent, I really didn't find anything, because my challenge with my two last dogs is medical problems that prevent me from doing freestyle and this. And so I wish I would have some behavior challenges. There's only medical ones those days. Anyways, we might get there one day, maybe. But So yeah, not so many recent. And I know your next question will be like about a nice, nice, challenging maybe, but something nice that I learned something. And then I started to think, well, actually, they always go together. The things that I found the most challenging were also the most gratifying at the end, where you learn things. So, well, of course, I already mentioned Zorro. I mean, I was crying the first months, and thanks God, my health was better than today. I was younger, 24 years old. Before now, because I wouldn't be able, I think, today have the energy, because he was charging everything outside. I live in Montreal. It's a city. Like, I can't hide. And but when he stayed alone, he would eat his paws until raw meat. So I couldn't bring him anywhere, but I couldn't leave him alone. So I had 2 jobs by then. I left one just to have some energy for the dog. And we lived at night. So basically, I took him out at midnight, 1 o'clock, and came back at 3 or 4. So he was nice and tired, so I could go to work the next day. Anyways, and the fact that people would tell me there's nothing to do, or maybe electric color, that wasn't very encouraging. So until I found some light, it was, despair. But I was like, no, I like that dog. Like, when I was looking at in his eyes, I was, there's something. I'm sure there's something. There's something he needs, and we'll get there. And we did get there. So he taught me very much, of course. I had also, in my first years, actually, of doing, the consultations at home of people, I received this phone call of this man who tells me, very openly, that he did lots of years of prison. He's actually a member of Hells Angels, which is a criminal organization here. Fine, yes. What do you need, sir? I have a puppy bull terrier, and I'm getting a bit old. Like, he was probably in the 60s, and he was saying, well, and he starts to tell me all the stuff he used to do to train his previous dogs, which none of this you want to hear. But, the terrible, violent things, I was just like, yay, I'm on the phone. It doesn't show if my color of my skin changes a few times. My voice can stay, yes, sir, what would you need? And I was also very happy he called me, and not like 2 of my training friends I knew that I'm not sure they would be able to finish that phone call. So I was like, yeah, okay, so what do you need? And I heard there's like new ways, because I'm getting old, and I'm afraid that when this pup grows up and he's really strong, I might not win with him. I was like, yeah, sure, yes, sir. When would you like to start? Next Wednesday, great. So I was so happy, and this is, to this day, my favorite type of clients, who use the horrible stuff if I get them to change. A bit, at least, completely, but maybe a bit. For sure, it's the most gratifying. It's not always easy, because, of course, just listening to the things he did to his other dogs were, I still hear them in my head sometimes, but they don't exist, those dogs, anymore. There is this puppy waiting, fine. So I went there on this Wednesday, 1 p.m., of course, not in the evening. I asked a friend who lives near, like, please call me at 1:10. If I do not answer, call the police, come with an axe, whatever. Nothing ever happened to me, just in case. So, but this is a good trick, by the way. If you're not sure about a client you're going, I was like 26-year-old by then, like, felt pretty vulnerable. But I don't usually answer my phone when I'm at a client's. But in a case like that, just, answering, oh, I'm sorry, well, I'm on this street. I'll be out at 4. So see you, bye-bye. I'm so sorry. The person knows that somebody knows where you are, at what time you're out, is just something that's good to use for if you're doing home consultations in some places. I never felt a tiny bit of danger with this person. But when he opens the door, he's like, who are you? Well, the dog trainer, we talked last week on the phone. Yeah, but I thought you were like the secretary, like, you're the one that's going to train my bull terrier, the little 26-year-old girl. Yes, sir. So then you have like 5 minutes to prove something, right? It's a puppy. It's just a biting puppy for now. Like, nothing's wrong here. I swear this puppy was helping me so much. It's like he knew that there is a chance he gets a better life. So the first thing, I start tugging with him. I like to teach tug for puppies, of course, for biting, but I like to teach them to sit and then have a word, okay, take it, and then do it again to start playing with the energy. So for him, the cue wasn't, okay, take it. I was like, attack. He really liked that. That would be nice for the little bull terrier here. And I also added for him that he not only sat when I held the toy he wanted, but he also looked at me. So he was like, "Ooh, nice! I really like how it goes." So I trained the puppy a bit. I transferred to him, making sure he can do it. And I mean, he was so sweet. This, criminal guy. I never had a dog look at me with such loving eyes before. Like, of course, he has a dog and he loves it, even if he did prison and hit, dogs, and they have a relationship. So he loved it. I was like, okay, eventually I have to go. No, I'm not taking the beer with you, but he really, really liked it. As I was walking out, his girlfriend came back, not knowing probably there was a dog training, just what's happening here. He didn't even let her sit down, and he was already, oh, don't tell him no, you have to do this, take the toy. I was like, okay, I'm all good, I can leave in peace. I spent 5 minutes just making sure the woman could do it too and not get bit by the puppy. I was like, oh yeah, I got this. This is great. So I had, lots of news from him. I think I saw him 2 times. Then I saw him a year later because he adopted a new dog. And then he referred me to all his friends. For months, I had all the drug dealers and stuff. But I never was in danger. I always left, my address or something, but I was referred by one of them. So that really helped. And this is when I was like, see, Mom, the fact that when I was a teenager, I was a really bad teenager and I had those really bad friends who went into drugs and stuff. I felt kind of familiar with them. So it also didn't feel weird for them, and it didn't create those weird things. But there were moments in those kind of things that were extremely rewarding, because I was also very interested since ever in zootherapy, and how the relation with animal can really heal humans too. But yeah, at that time I was like, yeah, I can't work in that. There's no money to to live. Now it starts a bit in Quebec, but no, then was really almost non-existent. But it was something that really interested me. And of course, looking back at my teenager years, why did I like those kind of people, teenagers that had tons of problems? I was already attracted to those kind of people because I found them very sensitive often. And yeah, they had problems, but because they had, because they had other problems. So yeah, helping people through their dogs were definitely something very, very important for me, especially in those, it's still today, but in those first years in my 20s was really sometimes when my personal life didn't go well, it was my reason to live. It was very, very gratifying. But also, you don't get any training on that when you're a dog trainer. So I did learn, great protocols and things like that and techniques, but no, I remember this man, so I'm 27, and this man was maybe 38, 40, I don't know, some drug dealer there, and he had a pit bull that was, destroying the house when alone, clearly, separation anxiety, and then when he came back, he would often, kick his dog for that, so that didn't help, and lots of stuff to repair. So of course, when you come there and the person's still kicking his dog, you cannot just stop them then. You have to start a conversation. So there's lots of things you see there and go, okay, that's hard. But I've been very reinforced in this period of those months of all those referrals from this person of keeping a poker face when they say or do something really violent with their dog, because I've been reinforced that if I do that, I can get a connection with that person and we can actually get them to do something else. And they did. And I have not met one of those people that did not want to have a loving relationship with their dog, not one. Even if sometimes it was doing really hard at first. And with this man, this pit bull was very anxious, sweet little thing, but very anxious. So we had, I think, was our 3rd lesson together. And so we start at the kitchen table, what did you do since last time? Blah, blah, blah. And the man just starts crying on his kitchen table, oh, my dad always beat at us and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Why did I do that to my dog? And I'm there, like 27-year-old kid tapping him on his shoulders. It's okay. Your dog loves you. And you're just desperate, like, I want training on that. What do you do then? Because I find in our profession, we sometimes it's not as extreme, but we go into family problems and dynamics. We really go into intimate relations of people with all their very big problems sometimes, and we have zero training for that. And we should have, the same support as psychology people do and social workers and all that, because especially if we work with a more vulnerable clientele, there's lots of things we can see, and even if we kind of help them through the dog, it's sometimes we're like, what do I do with that? So those were, I would say, some of the hardest moments, but at the same time the most gratifying. And I years later, when I was creating my course for my trainers, I tried to remember many of those things, and then I went into reading, about human psychology and things like, just because to give them a minimum, like I don't have this kind of training, of course, but just to give them the minimum I did not have on, maybe that's too much. Maybe you should now go see somebody to help you, to not absorb all the problems, or just, many of us see it like you're the last chance for this dog. If not, he gets, abandoned or euthanized, because if he bites another person, that's it. It's a lot of pressure. So all the human part of how we have to make sure we are okay, so we are still able to hear the next person that's super desperate with their dog or something like that.
What a great point, that as behavior consultants and trainers, we run into a lot of issues, or we at least have the potential to run into issues that our training as behavior consultants and trainers doesn't necessarily prepare us for. Being good with humans, we want to be good with shaping and using positive reinforcement with humans, just like with dogs. But there is also more going on there, I guess, more skills going on there that we could utilize to be better with humans, that come from psychology and social work in various places, like you said. I am a social worker. That's my first career, and I can say firsthand that a lot of those skills that I learned as in my training as a social worker, I use all the time in my work with clients. Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah. And you bring up excellent points about using those skills to navigate our relationships with the people, but also to be aware about ourselves, and maybe when we need to seek additional professional help or learn self-care techniques for what we're taking on and dealing with as trainers. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah. And one thing also I try to, make my students aware is, if you feel like personally really upset about a client and their dog, maybe there's something, not quite in the present reality. Maybe it's something that hurts you from something else. Like it shouldn't be as personal. It's not your dog. It's not your family. Of course you care, for dogs around you. You want them to be good. But if it gets you like very hard, maybe there's something in you, to that would need some care for sure.
Yeah, well, thank you for all of that. And the story that you shared about the first gentleman who you worked with the little bull terrier, I just love that the first thing that you worked on teaching them was behavior that was reinforced with tug rather than a behavior that was reinforced with food. Because I think that, I love reinforcing behaviors with food. And I'm not suggesting we shouldn't do that. I do it all the time and absolutely love it. But I think that a lot of times a misconception people have about positive reinforcement training is that it is only using food. Hopefully other trainers don't have that misconception, but the general public, I think that can be a misconception. So I love that you went in and straight away were reinforcing with something besides food, and also something fun and active and kind of quote unquote tough that might appeal.
Yes, that's for sure. It did appeal to the men, but I do that with any puppy that's in the teething stage. If he's not napping when I come in, I will start by tug, because help, he's biting, and then we can use food for everything else, of course. Now it's less a problem, I find, today, but like 20 years ago, many people will be like using food to train my dog, but I actually don't ask people. Like, I ask them if they have intolerance, allergies, or something. I just start using food with their dog, and it works. So they're like, oh, okay. And then they have some questions later, what to do when I don't have food and things like that. But this is a place where I don't ask, but take on the hat, like, well, you called a professional, so I'll do what professional do. I'll show you. Because if I know some of my colleagues that will start, are you okay using a clicker or a food? And they'll say no. No, it's not a choice. Really, well, after that, you can reinforce with other things if the dog is interested, because I know tons of dogs that don't know what to do with any toy, for example. Zorro didn't know anything about toys. His toys were real rabbits and deer and things like that. So lots of Premac there. But and thankfully he liked food a bit. Not like my present dog. My present dog is mostly Premac when I work him outside, because he doesn't have much appetite, and well, play is also fine, but not when it's hot or so yeah, opportunity to see other things. But yeah, finding what will be motivating for the human for sure is good. So for example, for those in general, if I get those kind of clients that need to be dominant with their dog or something like that, some of them I'll just tell them, oh, don't worry about that. When I feel like they find it complicated to be dominant over the dog, but the other day he ate before me because the kids had to eat, like, don't worry about that. And then we just, talk about whatever problems and situations, and we just don't talk about dominance anymore. But some people really need that kind of relationship. I also found that many clients started with a maybe clicker trainer or some kind of positive reinforcement training and didn't find it interesting. And then they went to like balance trainers, or even like worse, traditional trainers, not because they were some kind of violent person, but they were more interested in the relationship between the dog and them. And I find not enough positive reinforcement trainers talk about the relationship between the human and dog. While when you listen to some videos and stuff, they're all about relationship, just myths about dominance and stuff, but they talk about the relationship. And I find most of my clients, that's what they're interested in. Like, what does the dog feel about me? Does he love me? Will he listen? How many people are afraid to use food because they feel they'll be buying the dog's love? And maybe because I had the opportunity to have some clients that would open up after a few sessions, and had some really interesting conversations with them where, like, well, maybe they had already experience with a human relationship where when they lost their job, the girl left him. When they stopped giving all the gifts to their friends, their friends stopped being their friends. So it comes from somewhere when a person is afraid to use food, and it could be like, I don't want to buy my dog. So one thing I will often talk about is, well, us humans usually, what is like the perfect ideal love we see is often mother and child. And I mean, the mom does feed the kid. It doesn't, it doesn't cancel the love or something. It really goes together. So just sometimes to like shake the person's view. I will use that example. And what I will use a lot, even if we don't talk about dominance at all with this client, is, of course, reading their dog's body language. Because with what I've seen really over and over and over thousands of times is how the dog is like, oh, this human understands me. I don't have to yell. I don't have to do it so much. And actually, like sometimes you'll have in a family somebody that feeds the dog and walks him, but somebody else understands the dog and the dog is so bonded with that person. So if I teach people how to read their dog and how to respond, well, often their bond will be really great, food, no food. And then they're less afraid to use food for training. So often if I get a person that wants to be, you know, the alpha dog or whatever, I'm like, okay, let's do that. I'll just define what it is differently. So I often teach them how to be the defender of their dog. So it is like a, you know, you could be a big, strong man and very alpha, like, you know, kind of thing, and you're the one protecting your dog. So your reactive dog, you know, instead of pinning him on the ground, you understand now he's afraid of other dogs, so you're going to protect him from other dogs, so he learns that he doesn't have to try to protect himself. He can rely on you. And then, of course, like if you want your dog to trust you that you'll protect him, you cannot scare him. So that's my entry into like, yeah, well, you should, maybe I wouldn't pin him on the ground because then, you know, he'll have less confidence in you. So I use the motivation of the person to try to get my way finally. So yeah, there's, I really love, you know, working with people that are not sold to positive reinforcement right away. It's often my favorite clients.
That's great. I love that those are often your favorite clients. And I love that they're reaching out to you. And I love that you had at least one period in your life where you had lots of them reaching out to you from the referrals.
Yeah. That was a strange point of my life.
Well, it sounds like a strange point where you were spreading lots of wonderful ripples and helping people build positive relationships with their dogs and learn new ways of thinking about their lives with their dogs. So thank you for that. And I think that your examples, and I think you hit on both of those questions there, didn't you? The recent training related challenge and the situation that you found reinforcing. So
they go together. Yeah.
They
go
do.
Together for me. Yeah.
Is there anything in a minute here, I'm going to ask you about how folks can get in touch and if you have anything that you want to tell people about that you're up to or anything like that. But before we do that, is there anything that I haven't given you a chance to talk about yet that you would like to share before we start to wrap up here?
Maybe like, don't forget that your clients, even if it's their first dog, they can really take your advice and go really far with it if you give them the whys. Like, why do you want them to do that? I have always done that. It wasn't like a conscious choice. I just did that. I don't know. But then the way I train my students is also like that. And then they started to get reviews from clients where I could read again and again. It's so nice to know why we are doing exercise. It's so nice that the trainer explained it to us. And I get that feedback often too. And what I find also is, well, okay, they will need less classes with you when they understand how it works. But then they'll refer you to their neighbors. So, you know, it's worth it still. But yeah, sometimes I will see one or twice just a person, and it's enough because with the logic I gave them, some of them go so far. Like, don't underestimate your clients, even if they're novice, if they never had a dog. Like they can understand the logics if you explain it to them. And sometimes I've seen them once. I have no idea what happened since. I see them, you know, 2 years later, and wow, they did all that. Like, really, they really took notes on everything I said. Some of them are so good at just taking what you give them and whew, flying away with it. It's beautiful. And of course, you know, for me, well, after Zorro and the street dogs, I really feel you can take all the classes, and it's very good you do, but you know, ask the animal in front of you because they really have all the answers. Like, I find most of our classes are just there to try to understand better what the animal is trying to say he needs or he would prefer or he doesn't like. And And, working two brothers from the same litter will be completely different. So, yeah, that would be my two very general things.
I love both of them. Remember to teach our clients or to explain to our clients what the why is, and remembering to ask the animal in front of us for sure. I love both of those.
I'm sure everybody does that already here.
Very, very good reminder for anybody who is not doing it, or for any of us who are doing it, a very good thing to hear. So thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing everything that you've shared so far. Could you share with us now about how folks can get in touch with you? Do you offer any online services?
Yes,
Zuzia?
I do lots of online for, I've been doing it for way before the pandemic for people that live too far. So I do virtual classes in French, English, or Polish for sure. So yeah, my training school is in French, but all the rest for sure I can do in any of the three languages. So there's my website, CoeurCanin, which is CoeurCanin.com, which means canine heart, by the way, in French. That's what it means. So there is my email on it. Emails are the best. If not, I'm on Facebook also. Could be my personal page, Zuzia Kubica. So you don't have the Zuzanna, you have the Zuzia Kubica. I have a group, Facebook group, CoeurCanin, which basically people ask questions and talk about their dogs, but it could be other animals too. No problem. It's in French, but sometimes in English too. No, it's so not problematic because people can read it in their own language after that. So the group can be in any language you want. And I have a professional page for the Formation CoeurCanin as well. So I think I send you the links. You can write them down somewhere because me spelling and things in French, let's forget that. But definitely email or Facebook is the ones I'm there the most.
Thank you for all of that. And yes, we'll link to all of those things in the show notes. So Zuzia, from myself, from all of our listeners, on behalf of ATA, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to talk with us today.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to talk to any ATA community. Very nice.
We do, of course, appreciate all of you tuning in as well. And if you have enjoyed this episode and are interested in carrying on the conversation about working with the animals in our lives in the most positive, most fun, and most choice-rich ways, then as mentioned at the start of this episode, the Animal Training Academy community is waiting for you. Head on over to www.atamember.com and click on the membership button in the main menu to learn more about what members are describing as the Netflix social media platform for behavior geeks. That's it for this episode, though. Thank you so much for listening. You'll hear from us again soon.